Hey.
Hey.
How are you today?
I'm good, Wendy Stuart. How are you?
I am fabulous because January is my birthday month.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And we're preparing a few things for you.
We are preparing a few things because my birthday month goes on all month.
Yes, it does.
January 13th, if you're upstate or in the Pennsylvania area, we will be performing 50 Shades of Gay.
Yep, we're taking it upstate. For Wendy.
On the road.
Yes. Well, thank you everyone for tuning into If These Walls Could Talk. This is a very special edition. Very special episode.
Edition. Yep. We're very excited about the guest that we have with us today.
Mm-hmm.
We're so excited. We're just going to jump right in today.
Fine with me. It's a new year. Let's jump right in.
Right. And we couldn't think of a better guest to kick the new year off with a 6-decade career actor, playwright, theater director, and now in Night of the Iguana. Oh my gosh, please put your hands together for Austin Pendleton.
Yes.
Slide on over and you're going to slide right here.
Yay. I'm giving you a standing ovation, even though I'm sitting.
Slide Austin back and forth. It's like a conveyor belt.
There we go. How are you doing? How are you?
Who?
You.
Me.
There's only one you.
I'm good. I'm good, Tim. Thanks for asking.
There's only one you, and we have you here with us today.
Yeah, right.
Yes, and again, my apologies. I'm not able to be there in person. I got hit with a really bad cold yesterday.
Don't even. Don't worry about it, Tim.
So I'm on cold medication, and you just came from the dentist. So this could be a very interesting interview here.
I know you just came from the dentist. Now, does the dentist give you gas?
No.
You don't like that.
Well, sometimes he does, but today wasn't like a. And also, I love being interviewed by a Tim who spells it with a Y.
Yes.
Is that?
Yeah.
And you can, the thing about Tym Moss, you can always find him because it is TYM.
Yeah, right.
And so, you know what, Tim, when you pick that name, when your
I picked the spelling. My parents picked the name, I picked the spelling back in the 70s.
Right.
Very, very, very smart to do that. Night of the Iguana, this is like so huge that this is happening for you.
Oh, totally.
You know?
Yeah. Tennessee Williams wrote it.
Of course, yeah.
And he's one of my 3 or 4 favorite playwrights in the history of the world.
This is something coming from you.
And this is a unique play of his. It's not like any other Tennessee Williams play. It's about panic attacks.
How timely, Austin.
Yeah, right.
It couldn't be that.
The plot of it is panic attacks. And the very first time I ever saw it, I was in the grip. I'd just been in the grip of a couple of panic attacks. So
wow.
Yeah. It spoke to me.
I like that you're bringing that up because Tim and I, we always say we do real talk. And someone looks at an actor like you that is, you're a playwright, you're an actor, you decades in this industry and you work all the time and you teach. And I'm sure your students look at you in awe and think, my God, he's had it easy. But you bring up things like panic attacks, and we talk about the rough spots that people go through.
One of the hardest things I dealt with when I was growing up was I stuttered. And I had a very bad stutter.
Amazing.
A part of the reason I went into acting was I found that when I was acting, it went away.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, but then because fate is sometimes unkind, the first play I acted in New York was called "Oh Dad, Poor Dad, Mama's Hung You in the Closet."
And it's so bad. I remember it.
And that was with Jerome Robbins, right?
And he directed it. And, wow. But the character stuttered.
Oh goodness!
You had to go back into stuttering.
and it was very difficult. I stayed in it for a year, and just as Wendy said, Jerry Robbins directed it, and but I decided, I'd read the play and I thought, okay, I don't want to play this part. The three leading roles in a play that's already famous. It had been done at Harvard. And it was printed even before its first professional production, which was unheard of in those days. So spring vacation in my senior year of college, I was an undergraduate at Yale. At that time, Grand Central had a bookstore. So I thought, I'm going to buy something to read on the train. And there was the published version.
How incredible.
And I thought, okay, I don't want to play it, but it's one of the three leading roles in the play. It's going to cause a big stir. So, and Jerry Robbins was directing it. So I auditioned for it, and I spoke fluently in the audition, but the part is so written with the rhythms of a stutter.
Which you would know because you had been a stutterer.
Yeah. And so and I stayed in it for a year until finally they had to fire me because the stuttering got really out of control.
Oh my goodness.
And Jerry Robbins, when I auditioned for him, he said, and I spoke fluently in the audition. He said he liked the audition very much, and he said, "Do you stutter?" And I said, "Well, yeah, but I'm usually I'm in plays where I don't, and all that." But I wondered, how did he know that? So a few years ago, after Jerry passed, I was reading the wonderful biography of him called "Somewhere" by Amanda Vale, and I'm reading, and there it said in his teenage years that Jerry Robbins stuttered.
Oh my God.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
He knew.
Oh my goodness.
Maybe in the cadence even of your regular speech, he could tell by the way the words came out. It's interesting to me because you studied Lesac.
Yes.
Like how, and I wanted to ask you that because I know Lesac. I went to SUNY Binghamton. That was huge in our theater department. Arthur Lesac taught there. How did that affect?
Well, I was in this thing called the Lincoln Center training program for 8 months for the season before the Lincoln Center officially opened, actually in the theater down because the Beaumont hadn't yet been built. But so Arthur Lesac would offer me sessions on Friday evenings after the classes
when it was over.
And he was really very helpful. And then it turns out that Jerry Robbins had stuttered and therefore took a great interest in my career. And so I owe my career to the fact that I stuttered.
You could say.
I don't even
So you growing up, you stuttered. You had a difficulty with stuttering, and then so you worked and worked and worked on it to not stutter.
Yeah.
And then you get this role where you're asked to bring it back out. I can't imagine the fear.
Thank you, Tim.
That would have taken a lot of courage to have returned to something that you have worked so hard to overcome.
But also, what Austin was saying also that rang true in my ears, you were able to do this role for a year, and then you said it got out of control, where you couldn't even control the stuttering.
Yeah. So finally, we had a kindly producer, T. Edward Hamilton, if you remember. And we were in this theater on the Upper East Side, East 74th Street. And T. Edward, kindly, lovely, witty man. And he called me in after a Sunday night performance. It was an off-Broadway schedule. And he said, "We're going to have to fire you." He was so sweet about it.
My goodness.
I know.
And then so I had 2 weeks to go yet. And
wow. But
in those 2 weeks, I soared. So I went back to T. Edward and I said, "Oh, hey, I don't need to quit. And he said, "But yeah, Austin will just come back again." So 2 weeks after I got fired, after the Sunday evening show, all my friends came and there was a bar right at the corner called Tinker's, 3rd Avenue, 74th Street, a dive bar. And all my friends, we all greeted there, and I thought, and I was celebrating to be free of the show. And then I thought, oh, well, Jerry Robbins is never going to hire me again. A few months later, he asked me to audition for Fiddler on the Roof.
That's great.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I find that so interesting that you said that's one of the reasons that you got into acting was that when you were playing another role, you didn't necessarily stutter.
Yeah,
Like,
that's right.
Where you kind of encompass the person or encompass that role.
Yes, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Tim, you know what? I remember Eric Roberts telling us that, the film actor Eric Roberts.
Oh, yeah.
Telling us that story too, that he had stuttered.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that about Eric.
Well, that was one of the little tidbits that came out when we were interviewing. Right. You would never know it. It's nothing you would ever know. But how interesting is that? I wonder what happens when
it's such an interesting phenomenon.
One is another role.
Yeah.
It's a cerebral thing.
Yeah.
It's a psychological thing. But is there a chemical thing? That's what I'm thinking that happens in a person.
I don't think they've ever figured it out.
They couldn't figure it out, right?
There's a wonderful organization called American Institute for Stuttering, AIS, which was begun by a woman named Catherine Montgomery, and who I got to know pretty well. And she made it, her dream in life was to rid the world of stuttering.
Wow.
Of course. And you'd go to reunion. And so I went to a program for it, a kind of a 3-week program. But the problem with it is that people at the reunions, they would have become totally fluent. And then 6 months later, they were all stuttering again.
Wow.
That doesn't bode well for her program. I'm in a reunion, and then they started stuttering.
But and Catherine Montgomery, she was a marvelous woman, and she started American Institute for Stuttering, and I used to go, and I go to fun. Somebody else who used to stutter was the beautiful actress Emily Blunt.
Are you kidding? With the King's English.
Yeah, and Joe Biden.
Yeah.
You know what though? Joe Biden, I could see it in. I could see when there's a certain cadence he has, I could see that in Emily Blunt, not at all.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
so the gala every year, and Emily's there, and President Biden is there.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, sometimes
you got over.
Yeah. It's a wonderful organization, American Institute for Stuttering, and I kept wish they'd calling it something other than stuttering, and I was trying to
rebrand it. They need to rebrand it, as we say.
Yeah, right. There's somewhere I was going with this, but it'll come back to me.
Yeah, it'll totally come back. It's interesting.
I've got
my cousin Vinny,
right. Well, I've got so much, you've got so much content and just such a vast array.
Oh my gosh.
Your career has just been incredible. But actually, while we're talking about stuttering, we do have a clip of course, My Cousin Vinny.
It's gonna
don't you dare.
No, you don't want that played? I do
that played.
No, I was
that's fine.
Conversation, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Austin sends us a clip about stuttering. We have other clips on there too.
Please.
So of course.
It was that film was directed by a very good friend of mine, Jonathan Lynn. And he sent me the script, and I was in Chicago when he sent it to me, and I flipped through it and I saw what the part was. I said I texted him or emailed him back. Jonathan Lynn said, "Are you out of your effing mind?" And then I came back to New York, and my wife, Katina, said to me, "Jonathan wants to take you out for dinner." I said, "I know what's going to happen. I'm not going to do that." But he treated me to a dinner 3 blocks south on Lexington Avenue from where Katina and I still live. And a wonderful Greek wine, a wonderful Greek meal.
Boy,
and-
you were bought over easy, Austin.
yeah.
Sold out.
And
You know,
so,
Mediterranean food, you're good to go.
but then it offended much of the stuttering community.
Really? I
Yeah,
never.
it
Uh-huh.
very much. And it I still wish I had. And then after that, it went so well. My cousin Vinny, it's a classic.
Of course,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. It
it's a
won
bit-
Academy Award.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a brilliant movie. And so then after that, the only parts I started to get offered was stuttering parts, and I said to my agent,
Yeah.
I said to my agent, I'm not taking any of them.
Right.
Right.
I don't know what to do. What am I going to do?
Well, you're going to find me other parts.
Yeah, but I wasn't being offered anything else except by friends of mine, like 3 other movies
That's surprising.
directed by Jonathan Lynn,
Right.
Uh-huh.
one by Barbara Streisand, whom I already knew from What's Up, Doc,
Amazing. Yeah.
one with Whoopi Goldberg, who was involved with my friend Frank Langella at the time. I
Uh-huh.
only got offers for non-stuttering roles from those friends, so I think they knew what was going on.
Uh-huh.
And so the only big Hollywood film I've made since then was the Oliver Stone film, the sequel to Wall Street. You know, Wall Street 2.
Yes. Oh my God. And the name of that film is
Wall Street 2, The City
Wall
Never
Street 2.
Sleeps.
Yes.
Yes.
It was City Never Sleeps.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's Oliver Stone, and of course he's extraordinary.
Extraordinary.
And
amazing.
so anyway, it kind of put an end to my film career, except for indie.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's interesting having this conversation because if you didn't share that, people would never know that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
As an actor, you are so broad-based, so well known. People don't think, oh, he does more of one thing than another. Sure, all the accolades, the awards, the nominations
Yeah.
are out there, but there are names that are bigger than life.
Yeah. Right.
And I mean, look at this career that you have, decades, right?
Yeah.
So you know what, a little thing like stuttering, and you get by with a little help from your friends
Yeah,
too.
right,
And that's since Tim and I talk about that all the time.
Yep.
First show on Broadway, the first off-Broadway show I did was Odette. The first Broadway show was Fiddler on the Roof.
Fiddler. Yeah.
Also directed by Jerry Robinson. The star of that, of course, was Mr. Zero Mostel.
Right.
Wow.
It was slightly stuttered.
Mhm.
And Zero would have a field day with that.
Oh, did he really get to town with it?
Yeah, and I adored Zero. So, and other people in the cast, and people were saying it's terrible that he does. I said, no, I love that he makes a joke of it.
Right.
I love that.
Well, he wasn't making fun at you.
No,
he
he
was having
he
fun
was-
with the situation.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
And,
Well,
yeah.
I just want to say that I also, as you do, feel that you are one of the most underrated actors in America. I saw your documentary where where Jeff Bridges got it one year.
Yeah.
I agree. You should have gotten that.
There's a full-length edition of that film, and I mean the documentary, and
it's called Starring Austin Pendleton.
Yeah.
But there's an hour longer than.
Oh, okay.
So this,
and they're still trying to get it released.
Uh-huh.
And there are a lot of even more appearances in it by Meryl Streep than there were
Wow.
in the short. And
why?
Let me just mention a couple in there. Some of the people that are talking about you are Meryl Streep, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Maggie
Great.
Gyllenhaal, Olympia Dukakis, Ethan Hawke, Natalie Portman, and there was even a scene with you and Jackie Gleason, which I guess I didn't realize. My God, the amount of people that you have worked with in this industry.
And Skidoo.
And Skidoo, right.
Yeah. And Bill Marx is in that.
Oh my gosh.
Skidoo has had a very interesting history. First of all, there's an atmosphere on a film. It was the first film I ever made, except for a bit.
Wow.
and Otto Preminger directed it,
Right.
and he and I then were friends for the rest of his life.
Mhm.
And but there's this atmosphere on a film set when it isn't working.
Mhm.
And then Skidoo opened, and it got like the worst reviews ever. And within a week, it became a cult favorite. It opened Paramount.
Cult favorite.
Yeah.
Love it.
Paramount released it in January. When a major studio reduces a movie in January, it's a
Yeah,
clear
right.
signal to the audience.
It's
Forget
like
it.
thumbs down.
Yeah. And then within a few days, like some guy on the subway, a Columbia University student, I think, came up to me and said, "Hey, man, you're in Skidoo." And like with reverence.
Right.
then it became this, it's become ever since then a cult
It's
favorite.
like a cult favorite.
Yeah.
Oh,
And,
wonderful.
You never know.
and I ran into Otto on the street one day and I said, "Otto, why do they all like this movie so much?" And Otto said, "I have no idea."
They like it.
Yeah, they love. And there was a showing of it at the Film Forum a couple of years ago, where it was on a Thursday night, and tickets were sold in advance. It was all sold
So
out.
totally sold out.
And then there was a Q&A after it, and so I was up on the stage at the Q&A, and the first thing the interviewer asked me, he said, "How do you feel about the success of Skidoo?" And I said, "Well, frankly, I think the movie doesn't work." And there was a gasp from and I love that people love the movie. It's a very original idea about hippies and lobsters and all that, and and Groucho Marx is in it,
Right.
Uh-huh.
et cetera, et cetera. And Carol Channing, who I thought
Yep.
is a wonderful artist, is terrible in it.
Oh.
Myself.
But okay, but what you're pointing out, there is something to be said for it,
Well,
because the quirkiness of it, and you alluded to before, none of the chemistry was working on the set
Yeah.
when you were so
It struck a chord. It struck a chord with the audience. Definitely.
right,
yeah.
Tim.
You know, there's a thing about comedy in film. If it's really working while you're shooting it, you should watch out. I mean,
Interesting.
it was so difficult to make that 24 years after that, when Barbara Streisand wanted to interview me for The Mirror Has Two Faces, the first thing she said to me in the interview was, "You remember what a piece of shit we thought that What's Up Doc was going to be?"
So you mentioned Barbara Streisand. That's my goddess.
Oh, that was a good imitation, Tim.
So What's Up, Doc? You had a scene with her, and you actually even got to touch her chest.
What was that like for you?
Well,
tell me whatever you want about working with Barbara. I think that would just be so focused and so determined.
How Barbara Streisand, if there was another talented woman in the cast, she would make it hard.
Difficult.
Yeah. Here was Madeline Kahn.
Yes, right.
And
we in frame a little more.
Yeah.
This way.
So we're so Madeline Kahn was in a Broadway show. She had a week to go yet. So we started rehearsals early on a Sunday morning. They had flown her out. And so there's a kind of a coffee shop around the corner from Warner Brothers where we were shooting. And there in the coffee shop was Madeline Kahn. She introduced herself to me. Of course, I knew her. And she was so scared. It was her first movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so we rehearsed all day with Madeline. And then she flew back to do her final week. The one who helped her out the most about film acting on that film was Barbara Streisand. Yeah.
Surprisingly.
I mean, she would do a wonderful take, and then Peter Bogdanovich, the director, would ask for
God, I remember him.
for a second take, and Madeline would be even better. And I go up to Madeline and say, "What happened?" She said, "Barbara gave me some tips."
What do you think it was about Madeline Kahn that was not threatening to Barbara? That she wanted to help her?
Well, Madeline was very sweet, and she was very uncompetitive.
Uncompetitive.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
And Barbara was like so helpful to her.
And that's a wonderful thing to share.
Yeah, and also, you know, Peter Bogdanovich, as everybody knows, was obsessed with other directors from the past.
Right.
And in this case, Howard Hawks. And in those old Howard Hawks comedies in the 1930s, everybody talks really, really fast.
Yes, right.
At the table in a restaurant that he shot only in a master. He never cut for a close-up. And we had to talk so fast. And part of the electricity of the scene is that everybody in it, Barbara Streisand, everybody else, Madeline, all of us were so terrified that we were going to be the one to screw up the take.
Because you had to talk so
And so there's a kind of an electricity to it.
I was going to say, because that'll keep you on your toes.
I remember the day that particular scene was shot, the one I'm describing, in the restaurant. One time I've ever done, I went back to the hotel. I had to crawl from the door to my bed.
Wow.
I was that tired.
Spent.
Wow.
Yeah. Take after take, and we get through the whole scene. Peter would say cut, and then he would say, "Well, it's got to go faster than that."
Oh my goodness!
and Barbara showed Madeline the ropes.
That's so cool. That is so cool.
Wondering
both were such stellar performances, from Madeline and.
Talking, either of you, Tim, you read Barbara's new book, right?
No, I haven't. I haven't had a chance.
What about you, Austin? I'm wondering if this is in the book.
I'm mentioned on page 347.
347, ladies and gentlemen. Austin Pendleton is mentioned in Barbara Streisand's book.
Now I haven't looked further in the book to see if I'm mentioned in connection with The Mirror Has Two Faces. And marvelous.
Yeah,
she is marvelous.
She is marvelous.
Marvelous lady. And so we shot in LA, and then we went up to San Francisco for the car chase scene. And then because the hills, and now of course for a whole lot of those scenes the actors weren't required. It was just extra. So Barbara Streisand learned that my wife is Greek.
That's where the Greek food thing comes in. Okay.
Right. and so she wanted so Barbara wanted Katina to teach her about Greek cooking. So one whole afternoon, Katina taught Barbara how to cook a Greek meal. And then they cooked it. And then a very small select group of us met in her hotel suite that evening, about 8 or 9 of us, not all of them connected with the movie. And Katina and Barbara served this wonderful Greek meal.
Amazing story, right, Tim?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Well,
to have.
I wanted to kind of go down again. Your body of work is so vast. From theater, Broadway, off Broadway is just an endless list.
Well, Tony Award Best Direction for Little Foxes.
Yes, I was going to say the Little Foxes. You're
a director. I mean,
so in Little Foxes, you you were an actor in it in the first round, right? And then in the revival, you directed it and
Yeah.
directed Elizabeth Taylor and Maureen Stapleton. Tell me what it was like to tell Elizabeth Taylor what to do.
She was the sweetest lady in the world.
I would imagine.
And then so we got nominated for 5 Tonys.
Oh my gosh, that's so incredible.
Well, one was for Elizabeth, one was for Maureen, was for me, one was for Best Revival, and one was for the actor Tom Aldridge. Everybody expected Tom Aldridge was going to win.
Was going to get it.
But we all lost, and then we all walked over together to the Tony party, the after party.
What was that like? You know, all of you nominated, all of you lost.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
so political.
Oh, it was. You know, it was the general feeling was, so what?
So what?
Yeah.
So at the party, the press rushed past all the winners' tables to our table because that's where Elizabeth Taylor was. And then Elizabeth stood up and tapped on her glass with her spoon or something. The room fell silent. And Elizabeth said, tomorrow night, which was a Monday night, and that was when Broadway was playing on Monday nights, every loser in every category is invited to a party on the second floor. So we had this wonderful party Monday night after the show.
Authorities.
Go, Elizabeth.
Floor where they have that.
Yep, to celebrate losing.
Upstairs. That's
great. Elizabeth Taylor.
Exactly. A class act, I have to say.
Yeah. Kindly, funny, witty.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And just stunning. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But again, also in theater, just to mention a few of them, was The Last Sweet Days of Isaac, which I think you got an Obie.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
The Last 2 Days of Isaac was a total flop up until about 3 nights before it opened.
Oh wow!
And it was it had a week and a half of previews off Broadway, again at that theater on East 74th Street where Odette had played, and the director was Word Baker, and people were walking out.
Wow!
And in that week between. And it was at the time when the critics all came opening nights.
Right.
Word would, and he wore a sombrero and all that kind of thing. He would leap up on the stage and it would say, "You expect me to give you your whole," and then he would carefully calibrated notes. And within about 3 nights, the show was soaring.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was all details. We made a couple of tiny judicious cuts.
So the right
exactly. Reforming.
Right speaking, yeah.
He saved the show.
Wow.
And he was a marvel. He was very, very funny. Woodpecker, he of course directed The Fantastics. And he directed the off-Broadway revival of the Arthur Miller play, The Crucible. It kind of put the play on the map because the original Broadway production had not been well received. And about 4 years later, this tiny little off-Broadway theater, Word directed this beautiful, simple revival of The Crucible that put the play on the map in terms of New York.
Right. In terms of its simplicity.
Yeah. Oh,
its bigness didn't work the first time, but it was taken to. It's interesting because you mentioned off-Broadway a lot, and there's a power of production and creation in off-Broadway. It's a whole other animal than doing things on Broadway.
Well, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but off-Broadway is a chance for expansion, whereas it's not that Broadway is limited, but you can go places off Broadway that you're not allowed to create.
Yeah, that's right. And so The Last Sweet Days of Isaac ran 1.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Go figure that.
Yeah. First with Frederica Weber, and then with Alice Playton.
And
wow. And it won Obies and all that stuff. And and I was in it the whole run.
How fabulous for you, right?
Yeah. I had a wonderful understudy named Larry Moss because I had to go home to Ohio because my sister got married in the living room of our house.
That was the living room you performed plays in as a kid.
No, that was the basement.
Oh, the basement.
Is that was in Warren?
Your
Yeah, right.
sister
Yeah,
got
right.
married in. Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And that was in Warren, Ohio, right? Where you grew up?
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
It's
Wow.
L-E-T.
And your mother was an acting teacher, correct?
Well, okay, this is kind of interesting. My mother was a professional actress.
Uh-huh.
She was what at the Cleveland Playhouse, she was what then was called a journeyman, which is a step you up from an apprentice. But and my father was taken by a couple who were mutual friends with him and my mother to see her in a play at the Cleveland Playhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And they courted. And then my mom said, no, I don't want to get married. I want to go to New York and pursue my professional career as an actress. So she came to New York and she got a tour. She got a very good role in the touring company of the Lily and Helen play, The Children's Hour.
Oh, what a
Wow.
play. Who did she play in that?
Yeah, well, there's all those young girls.
She was okay.
And one of the flashier of those parts.
Uh-huh.
And so she was also, she said to my dad, no, Thorne, his name was Thorne. I want to pursue this. So they went in rehearsal for the touring company of the Children's Hour, the big one, the national tour. But then it was canceled because it got out the play contained a compassionate portrait of a lesbian, and a whole lot of towns canceled it.
Right. Oh my goodness.
Back then, right?
And then my father saw her again a little while later in Sardis,
Uh-huh.
and said, "Do you want to rethink this?"
Right.
and so
marriage thing.
Yes, and she began to see how unstable,
right.
that career was because of that whole episode with the Children's Hour.
Mm-hmm.
And so she settled down in Warren, Ohio. And first they had me, then they had my younger brother. Exactly a year and a half later.
Wow.
I'm March 27th. He's August 27th. And then 3 or 4 years after that, our sister Margaret, who lives now on a farm up in the Boston area, in a little town called Lincoln, Massachusetts.
Lincoln, Mass. I know where that is.
Yeah, and she lives on a farm.
That's how you say she lives on a farm.
Yeah, right. I go up there every time I can for that and stay about a week, and it's so relaxing.
It's beautiful.
I would imagine, yeah.
They had 3 children. She and her husband Warren, who passed a few years ago. They had 3 children: Sarah, Tom, and Sue. Sarah and Sue live right in the area of where Margaret lived. Tom, the middle child, teaches film in high schools.
Oh wow!
Very cool.
In public high schools, how to make movies and everything.
Right.
And he's obsessed with film. So every time I go up there, Tom and I go see a movie. Like the last time I was up there just a little while ago. We saw Killers of the Flower Moon. Have you seen it?
I want to see it.
Yeah, with Leonardo.
It's supposed to be amazing.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't. No, I have not.
Oh, it's awesome.
It's really incredible.
It's brilliant.
Wow.
Scorsese after all he's 80 or something. His last 2 movies at the peak of his form.
Wow.
Right.
All coming together.
Okay, but you just brought out what I call the elephant in the room, and something I wanted to talk about, something we talk about a lot on this show. We've had incredible actors on this show that are what we call senior actors, okay, in their senior years or whatever.
Gracefully put.
Well, no, Wendy Arcade, I remember her talking about being in her 70s, and I remember she quoted, "Well, I am at the end of my life," and I'm like, why are you saying that? I don't think of it that way at all. I think of other cultures take people that have lived incredible lives and are still living them, and they learn from them.
Oh,
Yeah.
and the
Right,
experience
and they put
is
them on a throne
amazing.
where they should be, and it's like you just want to devour the person and learn everything you can from them. My God, you're all
Devour away.
you are all working.
Yeah.
You're freaking working, which is incredible, and we need more of that out
Well,
there.
we haven't even touched on like film. You've got, I think,
Yeah.
about 250 films that you have been in.
That's amazing.
Yeah, a
is
whole lot of them are little indie films. Yeah, the big ones are Skidoo, What's Up, Doc, My Cousin Vinny, Starting Over, an Alan Pakula film,
Yeah.
and a Marshall Brickman film by the name of Simon.
Yes.
Been propositioned by more women because of Simon.
There you go.
Yeah, and with Alan Arkin, you know. And again with Madeline Kahn. And
That you get to be with again.
I made
That's
a lot of movies with Madeline, actually.
Yeah.
The Muppet movie First Family.
Muppet movie, yeah.
Yeah, and First Family, you know, the Buck Henry movie.
And
Madeline and I just kept ending up in the same.
there's got to be something to it.
Yeah. Right.
So also I wanted to ask you, just because our producer wanted to know the animated movies that you did, Finding Nemo, and then the other one, Dory, Finding Dory.
Finding Dory.
I didn't have to do a day's work on Finding Dory because they used clips from Finding Nemo.
There you go, Cameron. That's the answer to that.
The highest I was ever paid for any film, and I did not show up for a day's work.
that just says it all, right?
Yeah.
It's great when that happens, right?
Animated movies, that's the place. That's where the money's at.
Yeah,
but
really.
just some of the others that I was Catch-22, and you had a scene with Orson Welles. I mean, the level of artists that you've worked with over the years. What's Up, Doc? Of course, with Barbra Streisand. The Front Page, Muppet movie, Short Circuit, Guarding Tess, the Nemo movies. My Cousin Vinny, Amistad, A Beautiful Mind.
Beautiful Mind.
But the variation of you can fit into any type of film. That's what I find so admirable, is from comedy to drama to
the range.
Yes, it's remarkable, and you commit.
A Beautiful Mind was I only had one day on it because I was acting at Steppenwolf, and so the one day was a Monday, which is day off. So I flew down from Chicago to Philadelphia to be on the Princeton campus for A Beautiful Mind. One day's work, and everything I had to do was with Russell Crowe. So there was the scene where we're introduced to each other, and I was so tired that I introduced myself as him, and him,
That's tired.
And then the whole afternoon was devoted to the worst written scene I have ever been in.
Oh my God!
Really?
Yeah, and the director was Ron Howard, and the writer is a beautiful writer, and it deservedly won Best Screenplay. And I kept screwing up that scene, and Ron Howard will come over and say, "What's the matter?" He said, "This scene is so badly written. I'm walking along with Russell Crowe, and I'm telling Russell Crowe all the awards that he has won, that his character has won."
I remember that scene.
Yeah.
Right. I remember that scene.
And it's so awkward. And
it was awkward. Wow.
And take after take after take. And I finally we got a take that you could kind of finally late at night. And then there was the scene where I'm having a conversation with Russell Crowe, who weeps in the scene. And the whole evening was spent doing coverage on that scene. First, a close-up on Russell. Then a close-up on every mathematician. There's a thing they do where they put their pens on the table as a tribute to. And so then the camera overhead, so all the pens being put.
They have the pens all lined up like that.
Yeah. and on and on and on and on. Finally, at 11 o'clock, this is 4 hours or so after the close-up.
I'm feeling your pain while you talk about it.
Yeah, 4 hours or so after the close-up on Russell. Finally, it's 11 o'clock, and I'm so tired, and I'm so, and I'm thinking, this scene is the reason I did the film, and I'm so exhausted.
Right.
I'm not going to be able to do it. So the camera was on me, and Russell was beside the camera. They said, Russell, you can go home. You have a long day tomorrow. But and what they would usually do is put an assistant. Like, no, don't go. And Russell said, no, I'm going to stay here for Austin.
That's a pro right there.
Yeah, right.
And Russell, off camera, looking at me, played the scene as fully as he did 4 hours ago on his close-up.
I like that. I'm very
impressed.
Brilliant actor.
Yeah, and we got it in one take.
Right.
Wow.
So it's one of the scenes I'm proudest of in any movie, and it's all due to the pro.
Right. And the backstory, once again, it's about the backstories. If you weren't here to tell us that, I love Russell Crowe, but what a mensch, right? He stayed. Yeah. He stayed to be there for you.
And he asked me what I'd been doing in Chicago, where I flew down from. I said, and I was acting in Uncle Vanya, the Chekhov. He said, oh, I had an uncle in Australia. And every year he would quote from the reviews he got. His Uncle Vanya, and every year the reviews got better.
I love it. That's great.
Yeah. Russell was a prince, is a prince.
Yeah, he is a prince.
Oh, he's a great actor. And the generosity of that at 11 o'clock at night.
Well, that's what you're talking about. It's the generosity and the support.
And he plays as fully when he's sitting beside the camera as he had hours earlier.
Right.
And I couldn't help but play the scene.
No, because you wouldn't have been rising to the occasion that he created for you at that moment.
Well, no, but it just happened automatically.
Because look at what he gave you.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Right. If they had put some assistant there, and it's 4 hours already, 11 o'clock at night, that would have been, you know.
Now, again,
scene, and I think it's a brilliant movie.
Right.
The screenplay is so real, so brilliant. Where in terms of the schizophrenia, where you think a thing is actually happening and then you realize it's not.
Right.
It's a brilliant movie.
There were so many scenes that stuck in my mind.
And Ron Howard, I mean, what a guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And our thanks to Austin Pendleton. That was part one of our amazing interview with Austin Pendleton.
Yes, and you can see part 2 in 2 weeks on January 17th at 2 p.m. East Coast time.
Yes.
Right here on If These Walls Could Talk.